So, okay, thank you guys for joining our online session. This is our first online session, and I am Babak. I'm going to talk about HTML today, and we are using Adobe Connect Now for our online conference today, for our online class, but we found out that it had some limitations, and only 2 people could join the session simultaneously. There could be other people on the phone conference with me and hearing us on the phone conference, but we're going to look for better technologies to share our online sessions with each other. So anyways, I think that you guys can see my shared screen. I am using Google Chrome, which is a very cool browser because it manages your memory very well, and it brings down the memory usage very it manages is very cool. And the site that I'm on it is www.w3schools.com. This is one of the resources that I use to learn about HTML and HTML tagging, and you see that it has very cool tutorials. You can learn HTML, XML, XHTML, CSS, and then it goes on and on, and to newer technologies like .NET technologies, ASP.NET, mobile.NET, SQL. So it's a very good resource, and it's all free and very quick. So if you guys can log on to this, or if you rather just watch me do it on here, but again, the link and everything is on our blog and also on the conference room. So we're gonna start talking about HTML and know what HTML is. So we're gonna click on Learn HTML, and it will transfer me to the HTML page. So you can always go back to your home, and then this is the HTML page. So it talks about having examples, quizzes, and then it can also, you can participate and get HTML certificates and everything. So what is HTML? Let's go to HTML introduction, and we can see that. So you can see a very basic HTML tag here, and this is the structure that all of your websites are based on. If you ever want to know how a website looks like, you can right click on a page, and then based on the browser that you're looking, you can find the option of like view page source, or you can in Internet Explorer you can say view source. But here you can see that Google Chrome puts my source in a new window and shows me with different colors and everything. So you can see that it's a little confusing right now because you're not used to these tags, but basically web pages are made from tags, HTML tags, and the HTML is a markup language. So you can see, if you want to know what HTML stands for, you can see here that HTML is hypertext markup language, and it's not a programming language because with the technologies today, it has more capabilities. But when they started HTML, it didn't have programming capabilities like conditions and logic and everything. It's just a markup language, and it's a set of markup tags. So you see that everything in HTML is included in brackets in these formats, and every one of these are called HTML tags. And here you see that you have an HTML tag, you have a body tag, you have an H1 tag, and a P tag. All you need to know is remember, and based on the new technologies and XHTML and today's technology, there are some standards for these. Another website that is very useful for HTML is w3c.org. This is Web3 consortium. I don't know if I'm consortium. This is where they decide and create all the rules and everything about web pages and W3. So in here you can find the rules and standards for web. Going back to our W3 schools, we see that a simple HTML example. Every HTML page starts with an HTML tag, and then once you open a tag, you have to remember to close that tag. So the difference is your opening tag, it looks like something like this: open brackets HTML and close brackets, and then once you close that, you have to use that /HTML, and then everything else goes in this. So this HTML and close HTML acts like a container for the rest of the things that are in here. Okay, again, you see that HTML tags are keywords surrounded by angled brackets like HTML, and then you have other pairs. Talking about W3 standards, based on the standards today, if you want to have a validated page and a standard page, again, you have to remember to close every tag when you open it. You have to remember to try to use small caps, because HTML is not HTML by itself is not case sensitive, but when you go to XHTML and start using document types and creating everything and try to validate your page, it's critical to go with the standards to be able to validate your page. You see that it says HTML documents describe web pages, and they contain HTML tags. Basically, all of these are like .htm or .html pages that you might have encountered on your hard drive on your computer, or when you're going to a page. And sometimes you wonder, okay, what's the difference between .htm or .html? There is no difference. The only reason that sometimes you see .htm is, again, goes back to old times where computers could only have 3-digit extensions. The files could only have 3-character extensions. Nowadays, you don't have that limitation anymore. And another reason, this website starts from very basic, but some of these things that we're going to talk and we're going to see on this website, it might have gone to extension and they might have changed. But the importance is, like, if you want to learn HTML, it's good to know the syntax, to know how to write those, and to know the code. And later on, I mean, nobody else today would go and write HTML tags in a notepad editor. Basically, it's gone extinct. But if you don't know the foundations, you cannot learn HTML very well. It's always best to learn something fundamentally. So here's you see that, again, the examples and everything. And the good thing about this website is it has, sometimes you see try it yourself. Once you click on those, it opens another window, and then you can see the result of your HTML code on the right hand window. So if I go here and change that, my first heading in the tag, if I go here and say, like, this is our first online session, and if I update it, you see that the text has changed, and this text is inside a heading tag, and it's called H1. There's different usages and everything for these tags, and we'll get to those later. But another the cool thing about this website is you can try your code as long as it's within some limitations. You cannot go and try to access a database or something. As long as it's very simple code, it can process it and show it to you on the right hand page, and then you can easily close that. So after this, we go to the next lesson, and we're gonna get started with this. Okay, so when you're creating your test web page, you might see that you have different pages that link to each other, and we can easily try to see that. Basically, this website is very self-explanatory, and you can follow this at your own pace and try to learn the basics of HTML. And after that, you are ready. Once you know the basic, concept about HTML and HTML tags, then you can start using, the softwares and everything that are out there, technologies like, Microsoft Visual Studio Express or Dreamweaver or any other software that is out there for editing and creating HTML and web pages or even websites. So in here, we can easily do this, right click and say save link as, and it's gonna ask me where I want to save it. I'm gonna go on my documents, and over here I'm gonna create a folder, and call that W3 School, and just put it in there, the first one and the second one, which is page 1, and also save page 2. So all of these are saved. Now again, this is something cool about Chrome. It shows me all of those, and then I can just click show in folder. It will open that folder for me. Well, actually it's putting them in another page, so I'm gonna select those, cut them, and put them into W3 Schools page. So bring this down, and then I can easily remove these from my browser's memory or cache memory. And close this back. Getting back to here. So let's take a look at our pages, okay? And it says use your test web for learning, okay? And this is when we said like the difference between HTML or HTML extensions. So let's go back to here and run our main page, and let's see if we can open this with Chrome. Yes, we can. So here's the basic HTML text, and there's a link to page 1. If you click on this, it says this is page 1, this is some text. You can go back and link to page 2. This is page 2 and some text, and just like that. So if we see the source, the main page source, again it starts with an HTML tag and ends with an HTML tag. Then you have a body tag. The body tag is where your web layout and whatever that you're presenting is contained in the body tag. And then you have to remember to close the tag again, and inside that tag you have a heading tag H1 that says this is my main page. Again, if we go to the main page, you see that this is what that says, and then this is some text, this is a link to page 1, this is a link to page 2. So let's see that the page, this is some text, is contained inside a P tag. And Shahab is asking about href. We get to that. The P tag contains the text that we just had, and then there's another P which stands for paragraph, and inside that paragraph you see another tag which is called the A tag. A stands for anchor, and those holds the link to the pages. href is HTML reference, and this by itself is called an attribute. Basically, a lot of the tags in HTML, which we saw that are inside angle brackets, they can have attributes like you see here. This is called the A tag, and then it is closed right here. The closing tag doesn't need to include the attributes, but here you open the tag, and then once you put a space you can use the attribute like href, which then you have to include the name of the HTML page that you want to relocate, or if it's an image or whatever, the name of that link. Where is this link pointing to. And so if you remember, when we clicked on this is linked to page 1, if you go here, this is what it says. This is linked to page 1. And then where does it link to? It links us to page 1 HTML. And then the same deal with page 2. And this is, again, this is the same concept. This is the same syntax. When you are blogging or something, if you try to include a link to your page, what happens in the background is the engine behind your blog goes and includes this line in your blog. So let's go here, and if I bring our blog, ideaSara.blogspot.com, our beloved blog, and these are a couple of posts that I just did today, and I think you guys haven't visited those yet. But if we go up and go on edit one of those, if I go on posting and edit posts and then try to go edit my video glasses, when I click the edit HTML, you see the same syntax that we just saw in those HTML. So this is what's happening in the background. You see that there's an A link and it's pointing to a web page, and then there's an image. This is the image of that glass, that video glass that I put up there. And then because it's inside an A link, if I click on that picture, it will direct me to that website where the image lies on that website. And then there's the source, and you see a div container, again talking about that image, and then there's a div which is the text that I wrote. So basically the output that you see is this. And if I click, you see that when I go on this image, it brings a hand, which means that I can click on it and then it will go to the location that was contained in that A tag. So again, let's go back here, and basically, so this is the introduction to those, and you can copy those to your hard drive, and you saw the result. When we open it up, it goes to here, and we can click on those to go to those links. So let's go to our next lesson. So there's, again, basic HTML examples, and if we click on try it yourself, it's going to bring up this, and there's like differences between heading 1, heading 2, heading 3, heading 4, and you can have 6 levels of headings, and they are used for different purposes. Okay, try not to use a heading for example, making something big. There's other ways to make a font or make a text looks big. When you put it in a heading, it means that you have a purpose, and this text acts as a heading in your page. You have to remember to use everything for its own purpose. I mean, yeah, it looks big and it looks cool, and if you try to do this in a paragraph, it makes that text look big, but it also applies heading characteristics to that text. Maybe a text that you're trying to make it look big doesn't need to have that characteristics, and once we get to those points, you'll understand that. So let's again close this and go back here. There's HTML headings, HTML paragraphs, HTML links, basically all of those examples that we saw there, and HTML images. So let's look at this one, and you see that again, HTML and a body and then an image, and this one, the image tag, which is img, also has a couple of attributes. It has a source attribute which will tell the browser where to look on the website or your hard drive or wherever, the location to this image. And also you can tell it, okay, what do you want for the width of the image and the height of the image. But there's a difference between the image tag and the other tags before, like h1 or a. Remember that image tag, we don't have another tag that says /img and end that. You can have that, but because the image tag cannot contain any other thing inside it, you see that the body is containing another tag inside it. but the image tag is a singular tag. It cannot contain any other contents inside itself. So you have to close it like this. This syntax exactly equals to if I go ahead and put open brackets /img and close that. But it's not the standard, and we're not going to do that. But you have to remember that once you open it, in basic HTML, in very elementary HTML, the first versions of HTML, you didn't have to include that slash at the end, because again, it was a singular tag, and once you closed it, the browsers knew that, okay, this is the image and everything, and it ends right here. It cannot contain any other text inside it. But this slash and then ends, this is part of the standards that I talked about in the beginning. If you want to be with the new technologies, and your web page, you want it to validate against the validation and standards of web technologies today, you have to do this, and you have to use this syntax. So, and you can see that I can easily change this. For example, if I change the height to 100, and for example this to 288, and do this, you see that the pixel kind of like the size got doubled, and you see the pixelation and everything, because the resolution of that picture is not that good. So let's close that, and if we go to the next step, we covered the basics and everything, and now here you read about the headings, paragraphs, formatting, and the reason for all of those. Headings are defined with the H1 to H6 tags, and H1 is the largest heading, and then it starts to go down. Okay, now headings are important, and try to use those for headings only. Don't use these headings to make something big or bold. Okay, search engines use these heading tags to index the structure and content of your web pages. Again, these are the special purposes, so try to use it where it applies. Okay, and H1 headings should be used as main headings, followed by H2 and H3 and everything. So there's a hierarchy for those. After those, we see HTML comments. This is a very good practice to use HTML comments in your web pages. Sometimes you want to add additional information in your page, and you don't want the browsers and engines to render those and to show those. But if you try to design web pages, you need to try to communicate with other people who are reading or who are trying to edit those pages maybe for later on. This is just like programming and everything else. Documentation is very important, trying to leave notes for the developers, for the users, so they know what's happening. This is a very good practice, and this is the syntax that you use to create those comments. Just like everything else, you start with angle brackets, and then there's an exclamation mark and 2 dashes, and then everything that goes inside these syntaxes acts as a comment. So we can click on the try it yourself, and you see that when it renders the p tag only. Now if I go and remove these two and then try to close that tag over here, see, everything inside that tag acts like that, and then when I edit that, you see that you don't see that paragraph anymore. So this is also good if you sometimes want to hide part of your HTML or want to test something and you don't want to see one part of that. You can easily put it in a comments tag, and then whenever you're done, you can delete those and include it back here, and then voila, it's up there again. But you're not cutting out of this, and you don't need to cut this and paste it in a, I don't know, a notepad or somewhere else, and then sometimes you forget and you cut something else on top of that and you lose everything. So comments, here's another use of comments, and a good way to communicate for the developer or the viewer. So you can put like information, this is where the heading begins, and if you have a header of your text, separating different parts of your pages. it will be a very good practice when you, for example, go to blogs. Let's go to our own blog, because I am sure that we're going to see a lot of comments on this page. So if I go and right click and view the source, it's always a good practice to see these things in action. Now you see that there's a doc type up there. Don't mistake this with a comment, because it doesn't have those two dashes. This is the validation of your page, and you see that it's using XHTML 10 standards for this. And then you see the HTML tag with the attributes about it. And here, this is where our comment starts, and everything that is here, you see the blogger template style, the name of the style is here, the author is here. All of these are included in our comments tag, and none of those render. Okay, the engine doesn't read those, and then it ends here, but they're all included in the page. And if we go back up, you see that all of these variables and everything applies to CSS, which defines the graphics of our weblog. We learn about CSS and the usage of CSS later on in our other sessions, and you can see that if I go back to W3 schools, you can also learn about CSS. CSS is the correct way. It stands for Cascading Style Sheets, and this is the correct way and up-to-date way of including graphics to your web pages. This is the standards for web pages today, CSS2, and now we have CSS 3.0. You know, before CSS, people used to go and try to include everything in their tags, you know, formatting the color of the background and everything. And if you looked at those examples and the sources, it was very confusing and messed up. It was not organized. It was very static. You couldn't apply those, and changing something meant to going through lines and lines of code and spending a lot of time to change things, change the visual appearance of your weblog. It was a very time consuming and tiring task. But now with CSS, it's very easy and it's very affordable to do these kind of things, to change the visual output of your web. And the concept is to separate the content and the graphic from each other, so teams can work separately. It's very productive. Going back to our HTML, so we saw the HTML comments and the usage of those, which is very good. And once again, if you look at this, you see there are lots of parts in here. See, Google Ads section starts, and then the Google Ads section starts here, and then somewhere here it will finish. And this is basically, you see, all of these codes is what shapes our blog. So you'd be able to understand these once you finish and once you learn about HTML and HTML concept. So HTML tip, how to view HTML sources. Again, we went through that. You can right click and see page source or view source and everything. And there are like examples, which once again, it shows the examples that we went through. And then there's a reference. Remember that once you're learning about these, there's also a reference HTML tag list, attributes, events, color names. This is reference. And if I click on this, or actually let me go back and open it in a new window, a new tab, HTML4 and XHTML. All of the tags that HTML uses is basically this. I think it's less than like 50 tags or something, and you don't use all of these tags all the time, and you see that some of those are deprecated. I mean, they're not used anymore because you use CSS and other things instead of those. But this is again a very good way. Like for example, if you don't know the usage of HTML or image tag or the syntax of that, here's where it explains those. Okay, definition, how it's used, okay, has required attribute, source, and alt tag. So here's a reference, and then it tells you what browser supports it, what's the difference between HTML and XHTML, and this is again what we were talking. In HTML, the image tag has no ending tag, but in XHTML, which is the standards today, you must be properly closed, and then it says that you have to close it with that slash. Properly closed means that you have to include that slash at the end that we talked about. And then the align, border, HS space, and V space attributes were deprecated in HTML4 because all of these are now handled with cascading style sheets and CSS. Okay, so it also talks about those attributes, what they were used for, okay, which basically you don't use in today's technology anymore. But before, where it was like old school, yeah, we had to go through all of those, and if you wanted to get a good layout out of your website, you had to know all of these attributes and how to use them. But again, there was no guarantee because browsers were different. Some browsers had capabilities, some didn't, some could read these attributes, some could not, and basically there was no organization. But now with CSS, it's all there, and you can figure all of those and use those technologies to your advantage. So again, this is the reference list, attributes reference, events, and everything that you'll see later on in these tags, basic tags. So these are the tags that are used in here, and we covered all of those. We can move to the next lesson, and talking about paragraphs. A paragraph are defined with the P tag, okay, and we saw those. Don't forget to end the tag, because if you don't, this is what happens. I mean, a lot of the browsers do render those, but again, it's not the standard, and it will not validate. This way you are basically creating a non-standard and a bad code. This is a bad practice. So remember to always have those codes. You see that it still does show up, but it's not the correct way to do it. Okay, and then we have line breaks, and there's a difference between an HTML tag and a line break. So you see that again, a line break is a tag that is BR, standing for break, and because of XHTML standards, you have to end the tag and put that slash in there. So what it does, it puts a line break character in there, and it breaks the sentences and everything in those paragraphs. And this is again the explanation. In XHTML, XML, and future versions of HTML, tags with no end tags are not allowed. They would not validate. Even if BR works in all browsers, writing is more future-proof and is the correct way to do that. And then after BR, there's also rules or lines, the HR tag. What it does, it basically creates a horizontal rule or a horizontal line under wherever you include that. Okay, so you see that the HR tag defines a horizontal rule, then there's an HR tag, this is a paragraph, another HR tag, and so on and so forth. So, and again, notice the correct syntax, very much like BR. And then using CSS and cascading style sheets, you can define how long would this horizontal line be, what's the width of that, and everything. And you can find the attributes about those over here. Let's close that. HTML image tag. Let's go on HR and see if it has some attributes. So information about that, and then you see that, and width, and again it says deprecated, but just to show you, we can go here and take a look at this. So if I click on this, and on this HR tag I go and type width equals open quotation, end quotation. This is again a very good way to write code, because you remember to close it and then you go back and say, for example, and I go and because I don't know the pixel, I don't know how many pixels are in that right tag, I'm just going to go and say 50%, because if you remember, you can include either in pixels or percentage. And if we go back here and see the results, now that is 50% of the previous size. But again, remember that these are all deprecated, and now you use CSS to do those kind of things. I can also use align to make sure if it's center aligned, left aligned, or right aligned, and things like that. Okay, so let's get rid of that. And what I meant by writing code is, for example, if I want to add something here, a good practice is open the p tag and open the p tag and then close it after that, so you remember that you closed it, and then go ahead and enter whatever you want to do in there. And if I do that, you see that it's been added right where I put that tag. This is a good practice when you're actually writing code in, for example, a notepad, in a place that it doesn't have any type of engine behind it. But most of the new engines and web design softwares do come with you know, tag recognitions, and when you open something, it automatically closes for you. It generates the code for you. You don't have to write everything, because it will get tiring and very, very hard to write tags. In a lot of times you want to have, you know, capabilities of like dragging and dropping something, and then the engine will produce everything in the background for you. So I see that we are getting close to the end of our session. I'm gonna continue a little bit more because we kind of like started a little late, but again, you can go through those and read more and try to post your questions and everything on the blog. I will try to answer to your questions if you have more questions about this, and I'm gonna pull up the our session outline to see if there are any other questions and answer your questions. So let's finish this. BR and horizontal rules, and also HTML output. You cannot be sure how HTML will be displayed. Large or small screens and resized screens will have different results. With HTML, you cannot change the output by adding extra space or extra lines in your HTML code. So if you, when I go here on this, and for example, if I add extra space here and do this, there's no change in the output of that. There are other ways to control the output, and again, the best way is to use CSS codes and rules to do that. The browser will remove extra space and extra lines when the page is displayed. Any number of lines count as one space, and any number of spaces count as one space. Okay, and there's a try it yourself, and there are a couple of examples that we went through those. So here's a problem. Let's take a look at this poem problem. My Bonnie lies over the ocean, my Bonnie lies over the sea, my Bonnie lies over the ocean, whatever. But you see that although they had gone and wrote those in lines like that, you see that everything is coming after one another. This does not translate to what you see over here. So what are the correct ways to do that? You can include a line break tag at the end of each and paste it in there and paste it in there, and note that your browser ignores your layout, but if you go and do this, you see that, oh, this looks more like that. This is a very simple and quick way to do that, and again, you have to know that adding just entering that does not translate to what you saw there. Okay, so let's see our next thing, and this is formatting, text formatting using some tags like big, italic, this, and some of these are useful, like again B tag, which makes it bold, big makes it big, I makes it italic, code is like computer output, so whatever, sometimes you want to use those, and then you can use subscript and superscript. Try to use these tags, and if you want to know again what is good to use or not, again try to consolidate your here HTML tags. Try to consolidate this reference to see if those are still in use or are they deprecated. So let's go back here and reference this HTML tag list, and you see that, for example, big, it still is being used, or superscript or subscript, you see that subscript, superscript, the ones that we saw over there. So anywho, let's go back to our previous page, and I'm gonna stop right here on HTML text formatting. Again, you can continue from here, read about HTML elements, okay, and you know, attributes and everything. This is a very good resource and website. You see how fast you can go through these, and then you can easily try those and see the results, and this will very much affect your learning experience and improve that. And once you know these concepts about HTML, then you can start learning more about using, you know, softwares that are made for building and designing web pages, such as Adobe Dreamweaver or Microsoft Visual Studio Web Development Studio. Okay, so with this, I'm going to conclude our session, and let's see if there has been any questions. Are you guys still here with me? Yes, yeah, I can hear you, Shahab. So, and Jonathan says yes. Okay. Yeah. Yes. Okay. Let me take a look at it. What is your web address, Rahim? Okay. Go to wirelessrepair.com. So let's do this. Okay. Local people. I got a question for you. Yeah, I got a question for you. Is it go to wireless or to go wireless repair? Okay. To go wireless repair. And I hope that I wrote it correct. Okay, and is that it? Okay, hot deals, and this is an ASPX web page. You are using .NET technologies, and so this looks good. Right. You can, yeah, you can go and edit those. And also, I would really recommend, now that you guys are here, let me tell you about a very good technology, Microsoft technology. And if we go to microsoft.com/web, because after you understand the HTML tags, it will be very hard again to just go inside and try to use those. Oh, I think it's not gonna let me use this because this web page probably needs well, it is. I thought it needs Silverlight. Yes. Okay. Business Live. Okay. So that's, yeah, those are good softwares, and you can edit those, or you can again always try to use Microsoft's web development tools. And this is a very good source. If you go to Microsoft Web Platform, it will install software that you need to develop a web page, and then it has very useful links. We're gonna have a post on our blog or a session on useful stuff that are in here and how to do those. And then you can also go to Microsoft.com and Visual Studio Express. Let me see if I can find that. Visual Studio Express. And again, the Express versions are free, and it's very good. It has smart editing engines behind it. You can either download the whole Visual Studio, or if you go to the download page, you can basically, based on the usage of your languages, if you prefer C# language or Visual Basic or C++, to start programming to become a web developer and write server-side codes and everything. Because a lot of the websites that you see, it's not just plain HTML. Using plain HTML and whatever that we saw today, this is just a start. This is the first step into designing websites, because websites need more logic. If you remember, again, HTML is not a programming language, but in order to have a good website, you need to be able to program these and use logic on your website, especially when you're using e-commerce or you're trying to buy and sell stuff online. If you want to do different things, like when you see there are like drop down menus, if you go on links, they change color, they change shape, you click on something and then something starts appearing on your page. All of those starts going into combining programming with HTML, and it starts from very easy to use JavaScript with HTML, and then sometimes you need to include databases, database programming, reading information, making your website secure. So those are, again, the later steps that you take in creating your website. But the website that you show, it does have a lot of those underlying technology in it. You see that it's using an ASPX ASPX extension for that default page, and this means that it's using a server-side technology, a .NET technology. This is an ASP.NET web page, but if I right click on the source, because I'm the client, I don't see the code that you wrote on your server side, because that needs to be protected and secure. I see the output of what that code generates, and of course you haven't gone and wrote all of these codes by yourself, or like the JavaScript that you see here. The program that you use, which is Office Live Small Business that you use, it goes and generates all of these codes for you, so it will give you that layout. Now Shahab had sent another question. Let me see. He asked, is Flash Media a part of the HTML code? Flash Media by itself is not part of the HTML code, but Flash by itself generates those, whatever you see, it generates Flash files. which are also called SWF or shockwave flash files. You can include those, or you can embed those files into your HTML pages. As you see, when you visit a page and you see a flash does not use HTML syntax and HTML coding. It's a software, and by itself, if you want to use Flash or learn how to design Flash, you need to again read about that and learn that it's a software by its own, but the output can be embedded or put into your pages. And Flash, it does have programming side, and it does have, you know, drawing and designing side, and it covers all of those, and then renders a file, an output. So is there any other questions, anything? Jonathan, are you still there? Okay, whatever, guys. Try to keep this professional, okay? And I know that was Rahim. I know who acts maturely and who doesn't. So we're trying to remember that we're trying to get something very professional out of this, and then try to, whenever, if we ever kind of like make our blog public, or if we try to make another websites out of these, this is the portfolio that we can create, and we can always try to kind of like improve our presentation, try to teach other people about what you know. Now, another part of our training today was trying to use Adobe Connect Now, which we found out that it does have some limitations. And for the next time, we're gonna try to use another technology which fits our needs best, and try to use those for presentation purposes. So, are there any other questions or concerns, or we can terminate this session here? And then I'm gonna have to work on posting this on the blog or somewhere that we all have access to. Yes, I am recording, so I'm gonna try to work on it and post it. Alright, so, well, thank you guys for attending this, and this concludes our session today, and I hope that you guys liked it. Please use that website, W3 Schools. It's a very good website. If you find other useful resources, feel free to post them on the blog and share it with everybody else. We're going to be working on posting you know, tutorials, trainings, resources, all of those things on our blog. So thank you again for joining. Oh, you're so welcome. Thank you guys, and I'll talk to you guys later, okay? Alright, bye. I will.